My name is Franny Tolliver, and I'm a library stalwart, and I'm here to introduce Judy McElhone. Judy has been painting for most of her life. The turning point came when her youngest child was in kindergarten, and Judy took a class at a college in art, and that did it. That was the beginning of everything. It changed her life. Judy is not only a painter, but also a teacher. She's taught college art at the Hartford Art School and the University of Connecticut and at Northwest Connecticut Community College. But her great work has been at the 5 Points Gallery. Now, 5 Points gives most of us a little bit of automotive terror as we think about that intersection in Torrington, which is a scary intersection of 5 roads. But it didn't scare Judy McElhone.
Sometimes it does.
And so she's going to tell you about what she did about it. And we're so glad to have her here today at the Cornwall Library.
Thank you, Franny, for that great introduction. And welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. So to begin with, and I think I can go manage this. Okay, hold on one second. Technology is not my strength. Okay. And I will go back to where 5 Points started was I got recruited sort of to confer with, consult, I should say, with Torrington's Arts and Culture Commission in 2012. And they had the year before, they were closing Main Street on Thursday nights in Torrington to try to bring people into Torrington. And at that point, the storefronts were all dirty and dusty, and it just was a mess because it's an old industrial town trying to revitalize itself. And so I met with this commission, and what they were trying to do is to set up during this marketplace an exhibition of artists that would be in an empty storefront on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they would give a piece of art, each one of them, to the city. And what they didn't seem to think they had to do is have white walls or lights. And so they called me in the next year and said, okay, what do we need? So I rewrote their prospectus. And then that was in 2012. And I rewrote it. And 3 men had bought 9 buildings in downtown Torrington at about that same time. And so they weren't too anxious to give away one of those storefronts for this showcase for artists during the marketplace. And so they sort of held off. And after the prospectus was written. And then on June 1 of 2012, we had a storefront given, and they asked me to come and consult. The storefront had gravy colored woodwork. It had brick walls. It had a broken mosaic floor, but it was right on the corner of Water Street and Main Street, diagonally across from the Warner Theater. And I said, okay, sure. Who are the artists you got? And they said, oh, we forgot to send out the prospectus. So I said, okay, I'll ask friends. And so I went to friends, colleagues that I had exhibited with, and also people I had taught with. And what I heard was from too many is, why should I come to Torrington? Because he's a really good exhibiting artist. And I said, because I asked you to, and I've done you favors. And so they came. And so 5 Points was built on excellence from the very beginning. And so I moved this forward. And this is somewhat of what that corner looks like now. Although in the past 2 weeks, that the gallery has been painted so that it is alabaster white and 5 points gray, because that is the colors of 5 points now. And if we look over to the next slide, that is what on what is you're seeing on your right is what the East Gallery looked like that first summer. And you see that white door in the back. This pointer doesn't work, but the white door in the back, you couldn't go up into that upper area at all. It was boarded off. And that other door there was locked. That went to the cellar. And when I was growing up in Torrington, it was Singer Sewing Machine. And my mother-in-law used to bring the kids there for sewing lessons because she knew I wasn't going to be able to do that very well. And so that's what it looked like that first summer. See the floor, which is broken, the brick walls and whatever. And then on what you see on the, on the right side of the screen, my left and right are terrible. You can see what pretty much what that gallery looks like now. And in the far end of the lower image, you see the stairway that opens up into the what we call now the Weston TDP Gallery. The story that's funny about the brick walls was our daughter was visiting with her family and they were staying overnight. And we had decided after that first summer that we would keep that lower gallery going. You know, it would be a fun thing to do, right? We could do that. And so we decided to form a 501c3 and we got all our paperwork in order and whatever. And then the question was, okay, now this is no longer part of the Torrington Marketplace. This is 5 points. This is, well, it wasn't 5 points yet. It was a gallery. So we're having breakfast. And my daughter said, who has a graduate of MFA from Cal Arts? I said, what do you think we should do about those brick walls? Oops. What do you think we should do about the brick walls? And she says, you know, Mom, I sort of like them. And Ruby, who is now a sophomore at Tufts, said, Mama, it's not a pizza palace, it's a gallery. So up came the gallery walls, okay? And I will proceed to show you the next slide. The very next year, the city of Torrington got a grant from the Council of the Arts in Connecticut Council of the Arts. It was a $100,000 grant and the city matched that $100,000 grant. And as part of that, owners of property could get a $70,000 revolving loan, no interest loan to renovate a space for the arts. And this area that you're looking at now was the gallery. We couldn't go through that space. We couldn't go through where the door was locked. And so I got a call from City Hall and from the owners of the building and said, would you consider expanding the gallery into the upper area? Well, I said, sure. Then I went on vacation and then I came back and thought, what have I gotten myself into? So this is the renovation of the TDP gallery in the upper, what we call West Gallery. Look at that fine cherry bar that had to leave. Here's part of the renovation going on. It was done. They started in the middle of June, well, the end of June. And we knew that Anne Temkin was going to give a talk in 5 points because I'd had lunch. I was invited to lunch and I sat next to her brother and I said, has Anne, who is the chief curator for the Museum of Modern Art, has she ever spoken in Torrington? And he said, I don't think so. And then somebody on the other side of me said, that's not going to happen. And so 2 days later, Anne said she'd be delighted. So we had on August 13th, had to host Anne Temkin giving a talk and look what it was. And so everyone said, you'll have to go to the Warner Theater. You can't do it there. And I said, I think we can do it there. And this shows you the galleries. Now, this are the the show on the upper right that you're looking at is a show that's up now. And that show, doesn't that look beautiful? Victorian furniture. People thought we were, selling used furniture or whatever. When you look close, and I can't bring you in on it, those prints that are so beautiful, the carpet, the cushions on the chairs, and the wallpaper are all made of weapons. They're grenades, they're bombs, it's barbed wire. And there's a dollhouse in there that's just lovely. And so the artist is talking about the world we're living in now and how beautiful it can be in our own homes, in our own world, but across the world, all kinds of things are happening. And the artist is Jane Rainwhite. The image on the right is not in this show now, but it was a show that was very much respected. And that artist, can you see that sculpture that just wraps around the wall? And that's all made of books, little pieces of books. On the left side of your screen is how do I say it? It's a installation that you control by standing there and touching. You can see that a case on top of the pedestal, and you can change the color and the tone that comes out of that. So what I'm trying to say here is 5 Points continued excellence through the years. And we have shown artists from 12 countries, 37 states, in downtown Torrington. And we have changed a town. When the artists come, economic development follows, and it has. This shows an exhibition of 5 Points. This is before COVID. There's Peter Busby on the lower right. And you can see people, again, you can see the white gallery walls, very different from the brick walls, okay? And how people move between and through all the galleries. And getting Peter's work in there was not easy. We have a great crew. So 5 Points has been built on a tremendous group of people, from committed boards to volunteers to artists and to a staff that's growing, but still too small, that has made all this work. And as of this year, Torrington was declared by the state of Connecticut the second cultural district in the state of Connecticut. And would that have happened without 5 Points? Maybe, but I don't know. And this is Anne's lecture. This is the lecture. So we were so unprepared for this because remember, they started the renovation in July. I go on vacation. And Anne's going to talk on August 13th. That afternoon, we were putting art up on the walls, and our board was rolling chairs down from City Hall because we didn't have any chairs. And that's the crowd she drew. And the air conditioning wasn't working well. 2 people fainted, but thank heavens they fainted before she started to talk. And look at that. And what she said that night is she wished the Museum of Modern Art would get an audience like that. They were lined up down Water Street onto Main Street. And for those of you who may not know, Anne was born in Torrington. So, and I knew her mother. Okay. So what we started from the very beginning is the idea that we were promoting artists and helping artists at all stages of their careers. And so I thought it was very important in the beginning to start a consortium between colleges and universities. And this is a portfolio day in 5 Points Gallery where those universities and colleges showed up and looked at artists' work. And it could be anyone. It could be one piece of one painting that someone did, or it could be a whole portfolio from a student who was trying to apply to school. And we knew a lot of students in that area might not go to these schools to show their portfolios for acceptance. That day, 2 students got full scholarships to the University of Hartford. Yeah, and that's no small money these days. And so we will continue that. We stopped during COVID, but we'll bring it back again. And it will be at the Art Center, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. This is the Heist. The Heist is our big fundraiser, okay? We have it like every 2 years. And it's in, this year it was in June. And 50 artists donate 50 pieces of art. And you buy tickets according to the first people to choose, pay the higher price of tickets. And then there's a cocktail party before where you case the joint. Okay. And people walk around, they meet the artists, they have joy hors d'oeuvres and great treats and great beverages. And then they're called in to steal what they like off the walls. But those people, the thieves, are in the lower gallery, so they don't know what's left on the walls until they come up into the upper gallery. And so what they wanted may be gone. And it's fun, and everyone is encouraged to dress in black. So in 2016, we didn't have enough to do, right? We decided we should do a public arts project. And so this was the Torrington Yarn Bomb. And you can see one of the firemen putting up those yarn banners outside. I think that's outside the Warner, as a matter of fact. And there were 250 sites in downtown Torrington, yarn bombed by some 500 people from around the country, because friends sent to friends who were living someplace else, and they sent in their work. And senior citizens were able to, in convalescent homes, we had people that went in, show them what they could do. They could just twist yarn, it would be fine. They were on parking meters. They were everywhere, as long as you didn't interfere with the function of an object. And it was a great way to bring arts to the people, because sometimes people think art is sort of, you know, fussy or too beyond their imagination to be able to participate in. And this showed it wasn't. And this, you can see in the what you're looking at in the left-hand picture, you're seeing the gallery before it was fully renovated. See the stone front? That no longer exists there. And then there are people working on the yarn to bomb some area of town. And we also collaborated with the yarn shop, which is right across the street. So we built a collaboration with a lot of other nonprofits, not just in Torrington, but through the area and through the state and beyond, for that matter. And at the same time, it's not just nonprofits, it's businesses that understand what the arts bring to a community. So then, again, you got to do something more, right? You can't rest on your laurels. So in 2017, we launched the Launchpad, because upstairs over Five Points Gallery, there were these empty rooms that in the 1900s, I guess, people actually lived in. My own studio was up there, which has got me into trouble to get all of this happening in the first place, because there was a little blurb in the paper. I had up my studio downtown. And so I had that studio space there. And then from there, everything else sort of escalated. But as a mother, as someone who's graduated from art school, and as a mother of two daughters who graduated from Cal Arts in RISD, I realized what happens to kids when they get out of school. They lose a community. You can get together with your friends and talk about your work and critique one another's work. But at that point, it is, they're your friends. They're not really going to critique. They're going to say, oh, I like that color, you know, and let's go out and have dinner. So with the yarn bomb, with the Launchpad, we were able to take spaces upstairs over the gallery that the landlords would have had to completely renovate to have a business in. But for artists, it was great. The light was great. So the ceilings were cracked. Okay, there were some cracks in the wall. It didn't really matter. And these show there have been more than 40 artists part of the 5 Points Launchpad since 2017. 8 shared studios reside above 5 Points Gallery. 4 of those artists have received Connecticut state grants, and many of them, as it says there, have gone on to graduate degrees and work within the arts. And right now there are 16 members in it and 2 more coming in. What Hartford Art School did this year is that any 2022 graduate of Hartford Art School that was accepted into the Launchpad by 5 Points within 3 months of graduation, they would pay their rent for an entire year. And you want to know what the rent is? $85 a month, including air conditioning and heat. Yeah. They're all different spaces. Yeah, at this point, there are 8 shared studios. They can have 24/7 access, so they can come in and out at different times according to when they're working. They all have full-time jobs. And some of them we've been able to hire as we've grown. Look at them. And on September 10th of this year, there's a reunion. And a lot of them have moved on or whatever. Some have gotten married and their baby's coming back. How's that? These are some of the Launchpad artists working in their studios. The young man on the left is a digital artist, and he's built quite a following and works with artists and sells his work across the US. The other one on the right is Jessica Pamelas. She teaches at Conard High School. She is now the most tenured art teacher in West Hartford, because everybody else has left. You know what that's like during the pandemic. And she does all kinds of work and is the most lovely person, both of these people. And these show 2 other artists working in the Launchpad spaces. The gentleman on the left, Aaron Flynn, is a colorist, And his job, besides teaching adjunct at a college, is coordinating color for a printing firm. And the gentleman you see on the right is our gallery director now. He's Carl Goulet. I had Carl in class 100 years ago, and he was so quiet. He's still quiet, but not quiet like he was. And when he went on and he graduated, he was an intern, and then he graduated and volunteered. And gradually has worked his way up, and he's so good. He installs all our installations. We curate together. He, most importantly for me, he corresponds with the artists. So I don't have to do that, because you have, if it's a group show, we may have 9 artists we're working with in a group show. Do you have any idea how many emails that can be when you're working with artists? A lot of emails, and he does it beautifully. And this is another Launchpad artist. This was Christian Crowley. And Christian, this was one of the last critiques. I meet with them once a month on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And the first thing I say is, is anything wrong with your studios? Do you have any complaints? Do you have any concerns? And we deal with that. And then after that, they discuss whatever's on their minds, and if they bring artwork and they talk about their artwork. So they're together for that time, because most of the time they're in and out at different hours of the day. Okay, so we get back to Anne Temkin now. What she did this a few years ago, in the upper right hand image, she invited all the Launchpads members that were in the Launchpad at that time to go to MoMA before they opened the new MoMA. And she gave them a tour. The bus trip into New York was paid for. They had snacks on the bus. She bought them all lunch. And then she had a bus go down to Chelsea, and she told them what galleries they really shouldn't miss. And then the bus brought them back. And that upper right-hand corner are some pretty happy people. The image on the left and the image on the lower, the image on the left, the 2 on the right are both from that trip. But the one on the left is the tour of the Matisse show and the Red Studio. And it was an amazing show. And one of the perks I got to go to the opening. That was a perk. And so what she did, again, a bus trip. She so believes in the idea of the Launchpad. They had a bus trip in again, breakfast on the bus. They got admission to the Whitney Biennial paid. A board member paid for their lunches. Then the bus took them back up to MoMA, where they got in free. And then at 5:30 that night, Anne met with them and gave them a private tour alone of the Matisse show. And the weekend before, she couldn't do it because the Rockefellers got their private tour. That's the support of artists. Isn't that cool? So this is the 5 Points Annex. It's located 2 doors from 5 Points Gallery in downtown. And we began to realize there were so many local artists that just they were just beginning with their work, or there were groups that wanted to show and there was no place to show. We renovated that space, again, a lot of volunteers. And now we support the 5 Points Annex. It's a first come, first served community pop-up space, beautifully renovated. And we charge $300 for 2 weeks. The person has to hang their own show, take their show down. They have to either sit in the gallery or get somebody to sit in there. And get this, we don't take any commission on the work sold. And a lot of work is sold in the Annex Gallery. We're very proud of that. And there's some great shows coming up soon. Okay, so what you see on the left-hand screen is a community event, a community drawathon. And so people of all ages could come into the Annex Gallery and draw together. And we set up still lives for them, but they could draw anything. So there were little kids sitting on the floor, and their grandparents were drawing more sophisticated work, or their mothers and fathers. And then we realized they were also joined by professional artists. It's a drawathon. The lower gallery shows an opening, and an opening of a juried show, Small Works juried show, not this latest one. Right now in the Annex is our national juried show. It opened 2 weeks ago on a Friday. The work is, I think I can show it here now. There it is. And it was chosen by the former executive director of the New Britain Museum. And the work was stunning. What surprised me is we don't see who enters these shows. I mean, they're all juried by a judge outside the organization. And what I saw when I looked at who had entered, usually juried shows are entered by artists trying to get their work out and trying to build their resumes. That's usually it. Okay, so there were several artists in here exhibiting internationally. They wanted to show in 5 points because that's the one award we give on the juried show. No other awards, no $25 here or there, but a solo show in 5 points gallery the next year. And the person who got that award was Ellen Carey, University of Hartford, well-known artist exhibiting all over. And she did not know she got that award. Actually, that's her in the lower right-hand side of the screen with the mask on. And yeah, the fact that someone of her stature wanted to have a show in 5 points gallery made me happy. And then there's this. These are Launchpad artists on your left-hand side of the screen. That's Amy Ozga, because the Launchpad artists give us 6 hours volunteer work a month, but we don't push them on it, particularly during COVID. But that is a COVID image of Amy Ozga showing up in that outfit, painting that wall. No idea she was going to be painting that wall. And there's Sarah Sparkowski painting in the Annex window for a show that was going into the Annex. So they get gallery training. They get to understand how galleries work. And they become part of a community, a serious community, but they also get to meet really astounding, professional, more experienced artists. And the one on the other side are 2 volunteers, okay? And they posed, and they're posing at the New Arts Center. But we thought that was hysterical, and you should see it. I'm going to watch my time. I don't. Okay. That brings me to the new 5 Points Art Center. Where do I begin? So in 2018, a board member came into my office in downtown Torrington and said, "Did you know the University of Connecticut campus is for sale?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And they said, "Well, it's only for sale for $250,000. And I said, "So?" So they asked me to walk the campus we walked it on a Friday. And we'd have to bid more than that. We didn't have that money. We're a nonprofit holding our own. And so I went to a foundation. First of all, I thought, oh, how do we not do this? And we had to have a letter of interest in by the following Wednesday. You have to understand, I'm an artist. When I got involved in this, I thought branding was for cows. No idea how to do some of this, but I've learned from some very great people, particularly a former board chair, Deborah Seidel, who taught me a lot. So here we are, a letter of interest. Okay, I think I can do that. And, but we don't have the money. So I reached out to a community foundation, not a well-known one, a private one. And I explained, can you meet with me? I have a proposal coming up and I have to have an answer by 4 o'clock in the afternoon because that was a Monday. And by 4 o'clock on a Monday, we had to have an answer we had to tell our board what we were thinking about. And so I met with a gentleman and he said to me, "Well, it's a good thing I don't have too much time to think about this. Sounds like not a bad idea." At 1:30, I had a letter commitment. And at 4 o'clock, we announced to the board and the board agreed. We let the mayor know and we proceeded. It took 2 years and 2 months to go through the rigmarole that was connected with it because the University of Connecticut, first of all, didn't own its own property. Until recently, it was always owned by the state. So we had to go through the state of Connecticut. We had to go through the University of Connecticut and the city of Torrington. It's very complicated, but I'll try to give you the brief version. It was a bequest. The land originally was a bequest to me. And it was to bring the University of Connecticut into Torrington at what is now Thompson Heights in downtown Torrington at the foot of Hospital Hill. And when UConn decided, yes, they'd come in, that property wasn't big enough. So the city of Torrington gave them what was known as the town farm property on what is now University Drive. And that was 180 acres. And it was a swap with the idea if UConn ever pulled out, that land would go back to the city of Torrington. Well, the Attorney General, when UConn pulled out, which is now 6 years ago, said, no way, not in this day and age. We can't do that. That's a bad precedent. Plus, it had to be used for education. That was part of the bequest. And the city of Torrington didn't need it for education. So I figured, well, somebody's going to come up and work it or whatever. We got it. Okay. And we moved into that campus on June 30th, 2020, in the middle of everything happening. And by that afternoon, we had Wi-Fi up and running at the Art Center. We had volunteers who had loaded their cars with so much stuff that was in the gallery downtown that we couldn't actually go into the center until it had been formally put into City Hall. And then I got a call from our lawyer, whose fees were higher than buying the campus, by the way. And we did buy that campus for $275,000. And it includes 22.5 acres. The rest of the 90 acres on that side of the road belong to the city of Torrington, and we pay them $1 a year. It's called undeveloped, $1 a year.
Do you pay taxes?
No, we're a nonprofit. No. And then after that, but that's a whole story, but no, we don't. And then after that, in 20 years, we have benchmarks to make, and we will buy it for $1 from the city of Torrington. They will never get those dollars as long as I'm alive. It's just, it's a huge project. And it's one that's been carried out so well by so many caring, committed people, not just in Torrington, not just in Connecticut, but all, it's so much belief in what this can be. So what you're seeing now is a view of the campus land, and that, what you're seeing, are Don Gummer sculptures. Don Gummer sculptures came in October of last year, and they stayed till October of this year. And the opening reception was in May when Don was there. Meryl didn't come. We were all hoping, but she didn't show. No. So for you, those of you who don't know, Don Gummer is Meryl Streep's husband.
Yes.
Okay. And he doesn't want to be known as that. He is a wonderful, kind, talented gentleman. And, you know, he wants to be known for his sculptures and his work. And we're very honored to have his work there. Also on the land is a land art installation, the Meadow Part Air, and that is from Bob Chaplin. He got a grant from the city, from the state of Connecticut, and he came to us and asked if we would put that in. And it's like, you know, it goes into the woods, out into the meadow, and onto the lawn. And what you're seeing there is from last year. This year is much higher, and very beautiful as you walk through the woods and come back out again. And what we want to do on that campus is very much put in installations to honor the land, to honor the environment, to honor climate change. What can we do? I mean, people lived on the town farm, indigent people, and they were able to raise their families there. And there are all kinds of records in Torrington about that. So that fed a lot of people. Let's honor the land. And that's one thing UConn didn't really do. They started as an agricultural school in Willimantic, but they didn't use this property in that way. So we want to bring attention to the land. And so not only is it an art center, but a 90-acre art park. And part of that art park will be a trail that goes from the campus property right near the art center, and that goes up through the woods into the John Brown property. So that trail is part of the Torrington Trails Network and the Torrington Historical Property. And we're collaborating to that together. And what will happen gradually is sculptures will be along that trail. So you would have a trail that talks about the land, and it talks about art, and it talks about history. And up in the woods, I got to walk it, you know, and up in the woods, we found a pond, and the pond was dammed. And apparently that's where farmers years ago harvested ice off that. It's the most beautiful, calm, gorgeous place. So eventually that trail will also be part of the campus. That's the Wilson Sheen Auditorium. That's the campus auditorium. It looks just like that. There's Scott Richter's 2 paintings are up there. Look at it. We've had a lot of events there despite COVID. because it's 245 seats. So at first we didn't have any events in there, but now we've had more and more. So community organizations rent it. If it's for a good cause, we let them come. Okay. And yeah, we also have lecture, and Temkin will be talking here, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Okay. This is the lounge area. The lounge area is sponsored by Thomaston Savings Bank. When we moved in on June 30th, 2020, those walls were bright blue and bright yellow. And there was junk everywhere. Now the campus was completely remediated because it was a university. So it was remediated, but it was, I mean, they were out for 4 years when we moved in. So there was furniture and dust and whatever. All that you see there has been done by staff and volunteers. Isn't that amazing? And over the fireplace now, that's an older picture, is a TV screen. If I can say this correctly. On the campus, there is a tower that is part of an Eversource and Yukon experiment. So the data from that sends out to a receptor is taken by the artist Jean Gort, turned into images. And so the images on the TV screen change as the weather changes. So on a hilltop in Northwest Connecticut, you can have images made based on what the weather is, and you can send it anywhere in the world. And along the bottom of the screen scrolls what's happening in the world, a text. So what art can do is pretty amazing. Okay, this is the painting studio. The easels that you see were donated by Jerry's Artorama. It's called the Pamelas Tacoma studio, because Pamelas Tacoma had exhibited with us early on. She was a supporter of 5 Points, and she passed about 2 years ago, and it seemed the right thing to do. And since that time, her brother has donated all her work that was left to 5 Points to use in any way we need. It can be sold, it can be hung in the art center, used anyway. And as someone who taught painting in a lot of college art studios, you ever see 2 soapstone sinks? I haven't. This is okay, we don't call them studios, we call them laboratories, because that's where you experiment and explore. That is the children's lab. And when you saw Amy Ozga painting the wall, that's the wall she was painting. All those images on the wall are painted by kids from ages 2 to 6. Okay. And it's so friendly, and it's made to be, we've had classes with autistic children. We've had classes with kids who just come in with caregivers. When we moved into that space, there was a horrible floor. You couldn't tell what was in there because there was shelving and furniture and whatever. You know what we found? We found a safe. No money, but there was a safe in there. That was how crowded that room was. It just doesn't make you happy just to look at it. That's the 5 Points printmaking studio, Robert Dente printmaking lab. I should go back. This children's lab is sponsored by Union Savings Bank. And this is Litchfield Bancorp and Northwest Community Bank sponsor the Robert Dente printmaking lab. And why it's about Robert Dente printmaking lab is because he had a show on 5 Points early on, and I'd known about through the years. We both were art professors. And when he left, he said, Judy, when I pass, I'm giving my studio to the Launchpad Artists. And I said, well, Bob, I'm not holding my breath. But I knew he wasn't well. And with about 2 months, he had passed. And so we named the print studio after him. But what you can't see there is an etching press to one side. His press is not clear in this photo. It's about in the middle window. And we were able to go to his collectors and students and family members and raise $22,000 for that etching press. The litho press we got from a company going out of business in Oakville. That was their library, and there was carpeting all over the floor. This is the only room we had brought in a company to paint because the ceilings are 22 feet high. The windows were covered with boards on the top 2 layers. So I thought, okay, that must be insulation, you know, but then a librarian said, no, that's just to keep the light off the books. So the company, I should back up again. We got through a board member, we got a connection with the Thaw Charitable Trust in Santa Fe, $100,000 grant. So that $100,000 grant allowed us to do the plumbing and the ventilation and the wiring that we needed. But all the work that you see there was done by staff, by volunteers and staff. And the cabinets, you can't see a lot of them that were all built, is by Bill Haygood, who is our facilities manager. And the room where you see the yellow sink like outside of it, which is an eye washing station, was never there. And that's the acid room for etching. Up above, the only place where the campus has a second story is going to be silkscreen, and that the new floor is down there. And we will be able to furnish that and a lot of other things I'll talk to you about, because last July, not this past July, a year ago July, we were awarded a bond by the state of Connecticut, $2,733,500. And it's taken a year to get through all the state paperwork, but it's done. And so now we're beginning to reach out and to bring in the equipment and that we need to bring some of these studios and develop others. Sorry, laboratories. I worked in the art world too long. I call them studios. They're labs. This is the alternative process photography lab. And it's a naming opportunity in case anybody wants to give a name out to it. That was their physics lab, and it completely renovated. The floors in the corridor are all tile, and they're popping up because they've been down for so long. So we have a contract now through the bond where all the floors in the corridors will look like what you see there, or very similar to that, which will give it much less of an institutional look. The tables were built by a volunteer. They were designed and built by a volunteer, and the tops of them came off the chemistry tables in the lab. Everything there has been painted, and again, the Thaw Charitable Trust paid for the renovations as far as ventilation is concerned and wiring. Everything else you see in that room is donated. The support is mind-boggling. An alternative process photo lab means that you can do darkroom photography. Well, you can get images that look like they're done in a darkroom, but you don't need a darkroom to do it. And there are about 6 images that we can use, 6 processes that we can use that do not involve hazardous materials. We consulted on all these different labs with experts in the field, and this was Christopher James, who zoomed with us on it. He is considered the guru on alternative processing photography. And somebody gave me his name, so I sent an email. Why not? I could find it on their website. And he came back the next morning and he worked with us because we thought part of this would be a dark room. And he said, no, you don't want to do that. And so we've already had a lot of different workshops in that lab. And that's the dark room. Again, all painted, all the tile taken up. Remember, this has been a pretty short period of time. And again, all that equipment donated by artists that weren't using it anymore. On the left side of the screen is the Peter Howe Digital Lab. So Peter Howe was on our original board and he passed, and then they gave his entire studio, all his equipment, and also all his books. And I'll get to the books in a little while. That's a new floor, as you can see. And what happens, and I know nothing about photography. My daughter has a degree in photography, so I learn a little bit, but I don't really know much about the processes. You can take with your phone a digital, not just a photograph, what I'm looking for. Okay, it's the thing you make photographs off of, okay? So you take a digital print, and that's not the right word. What? Image. Not really image. No, it's what? Thank you. The negative. Thank you very much. And you take a digital negative off your phone, and then you can use that in different ways. So it's not just looking like something off your phone, but looking like old time photography. So it almost looks like painting. And we have several different workshops coming up on that, and they're really astounding. So you get a kind of painterly look, or a different kind of old-fashioned look based on what comes off the negative from your phone. And on the right-hand side is the drawing studio. And the drawings, all those tables, they were donated. This is the contemporary ceramics lab, and this is the next thing we're working on. And that's the layout, which will change some because they always do. And that gives you some sense of what that will look like. That room is over 3,000 square feet. So it's a big space. And we have to open, all told, it's about 3,000 square feet because we have to open the wall between the big room and a smaller room because it was, you know, they were classrooms. And that smaller room has a janitor's closet where there's a drain and all the plumbing is in the ceiling. So it's a lot to figure out, but we're getting there. Fine Art Textile Lab. Coming soon. That's the library, okay? So there were about 2,000 books have been donated. Every single one of those books you see on the shelves has been donated. And then we recently got a donation of $10,000 to do it over because right after we moved in, Sharon Wagner, who was on our city council, a retired librarian from the Adirondacks, moved into town. She said, Judy, I'm bored to death isolating at home with my husband. Can I come and isolate and build your library? So the new library, after it's renovated, and it's almost there, will be the Sharon Flannery Wagner Library. And that's it underway. And all this is, it's further along than it is now. And she has an office. Her office is crammed with donated books. And so for any duplicate books, we're going to be calling in the art teachers in the community and they can take them for their classrooms if they want them. You give back, you know, give back. And these show that that's Jill Enfield's cyanotype workshop in the photo processing studio and people working on that. Jill has a show that's in the gallery downtown right now. It's her glass house, and it's a house made of old windows, and there are immigrants' photographs on every one of these windows. And our staff put the whole house together. You can walk through it. And the idea is we're all immigrants unless we're Native Americans. We all have an immigrant background. So people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And on the wall, she has portraits of all these different immigrants, people she knows, and it tells what they're doing in the United States at this time. Pretty cool, huh? And then this is John Willis doing a monoprint workshop in the print studio. And it's almost like, you can see, it's almost like you're, you know, you're making art outside. And when those boards came down off the top windows, we had staff inside, you know, the print studio was just being built. And taking the boards off needed a scissors lift outside. And so the electric company that did all the wiring donated the scissors lift, and they had two guys up on it and they were taking the boards off and we're inside going like this. They thought we were crazy. These are some of the workshops that are coming up in September. And they all look interesting. The one on the further left is you go home with a whole designed I can't say that, charcuterie, okay? And you'll take that home with you. The layered colored wood print monoprint workshop is with Jim Lee, and he is a master printer, and he's done 2 already that were packed. And then the fundamentals of plein air painting. Should say also that every Wednesday night there's drop-in drawing at the Art Center. So you can just drop in, and you need to sign up first so we know, make sure we have enough for the model. This tells you a little bit about what's happening. The Instagram, the Facebook, and it's just 10 years. And that is our 10th anniversary lecture. That's October 1. That's the Art Center. And she will be talking about myth versus fact. And basically she's saying, we develop as artists our whole lives. You know, we can have a star coming out. The media makes a big push. Oh, this star just came out of somewhere or another and they're 22 years old. And she's saying, she's going to be talking about how it takes a lifetime and we evolve over that lifetime. As with everything at 5 Points, it's free and open to the public, but there will be a cocktail reception. I hate the word VIP, but a cocktail reception where people can mingle and meet and there will be wine and spirits, and the Waterbury Symphony will be there, and the lecture after, it's free and open to the public.
You said October 1st.
October 1st. Pardon?
It's nowhere on there. Just so you-
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. That goes out with another card, though. I brought it with me. But yes, it is all over our website, and all the e-blasts will go out on Tuesday morning. Thank you for that. Yeah, but it's October 1st, a Saturday evening, and we're honored. Okay, we did last year. We did the first celebration of the Art Center and opened it to the public, and that was also in October. And we expected maybe we get 100 people, and we had to turn people away because they're over. Yeah, and our goal was to make $50,000. Okay, and we made 100. So yes, and I also should say that so many volunteers. Lynn Gelomino, who's the former executive director of the Warner Theater, retired just 1 month before COVID hit. And we have gotten to be good friends because we're nonprofit organizations in downtown Torrington. And she said, Judy, I'm bored. Can I come write grants for you? Because I was writing grants with, and having our financial person put all the budgets in because I'm not good at figures. And she has raised for us $300,000 with writing grants. So it's just beginning. We're only a couple of years in. We're building this. We've already had an artist in residence program, a short 1 week one. We're reaching out. We have so many different opportunities coming to us literally around the world. And so where it goes from here, I just hope I live long enough to see. So yeah, thank you. Do you have any questions?
If you haven't been out to the location, it's so shockingly beautiful. When you turn on that road, you have no idea what the campus looks like. And you get out, it's like farmland.
It is.
In Torrington, and it's really a shock.
And that was where apparently where the first homes were started, up on that hillside, because it was away from the rivers and whatever. And now we keep saying that everybody teases that you can't buy any property on that for $275,000. But we have a person that we have a partnership with the University of Hartford, because I taught there for a number of years and I'm on their board. And we're a pilot program with them. So it's not just Hartford Art School, but several of the different colleges and universities. And one of them, the gentleman who came out was the dean of the School of Architecture. And he said, Judy, whenever I turn in University Drive, my blood pressure drops. Yeah, so that's nice. So,
you have to register to go to this?
yes, you do. And it will be on our website. Just go on the 5 Points website and register there and all that. If you're not on our e-blast and would like to be, you can go on our website and you can sign up. So you'll get everything that's happening, because a lot is happening. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Does your print lab have acid baths and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we use fluoric acid now. When I was in school, it was nitric acid, and this fluoric acid is much less dangerous. But yes, we do. And it is messy stuff because it gets orange-like, but we put plexiglass up on the walls. Hopefully we can, wipe that off easier. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
One other question.
Sure.
Is there any chance that you have printers that are capable of handling prints like art prints?
Yeah, that is coming with a bond. Yes, it is. And we are going to have set up a whole digital lab, a separate lab. And we've been working with people and consulting on that. Just exactly what do we need? And I've got a lot of feedback coming. So if you have any feedback, anyone looking for it, because every one of these labs we've set up, we've consulted with groups of people on how to do it best, how to figure out how's the best way to do it. Because as we do with the gallery downtown, which gotten it as far as we have is excellence, and we want the art center to be excellent too, in every way. Yep. As excellent as we know how to make it anyhow. So all your input will help. Anything, anybody else?
Well, then.
Well then.
Thank you.
Jay, from a person who has not only vision, but gumption and a sense of humor. We're so grateful to Judy McElhone. Thank you very much.
And my pleasure.
And
Thank you. All at the Art Center, you can have a tour about anytime you want. Just call the Art Center and we give tours all the time. And people go by when they get through. And it will be even more in a while. Thank you.